should have gone into the basement. When I first moved into the old house, I was drawn to its history. The realtor mentioned it had been abandoned for years before I bought it, and she had no real explanation for why. Most people didn't want to live in such a remote place. It was cheap, and that's all I cared about. The house, with its creaky floorboards and dusty rooms, seemed charming in a ghost story kind of way. I liked it, except for the basement. The door to the basement was at the end of a narrow hallway tucked behind the kitchen. It was locked when I moved in, and the realtor didn't have a key. Probably just old storage, she had said with a shrug. I left it alone for weeks, content to live in the rest of the house without venturing down there. But every time I passed that door, a strange chill would run down my spine. I convinced myself I was just being paranoid. The house was old, of course it would have strange noises and cold spots. But there was something about that door. Something about the way the house seemed to grow quieter when I stood in front of it. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Eventually, my curiosity got the better of me. One night, after a few glasses of wine, I grabbed a flashlight and decided to break the lock. It took some effort, but after several minutes of prying, the rusty lock gave way with a sharp snap. The door swung open with a loud creak, revealing a set of narrow stairs leading down into darkness. A musty, stale smell wafted up from below, the kind of scent that had been trapped for decades. I hesitated for a moment, but then I stepped down into the basement. The stairs creaked beneath my weight, and the darkness swallowed me whole as I descended. My flashlight beam cut through the thick air, illuminating walls covered in peeling paint and cobwebs. The basement was larger than I expected, with several rooms branching off from a long corridor. Most of them were empty, filled only with dust and the occasional forgotten piece of furniture. But then I reached the last room. The door at the end of the corridor was slightly ajar, as if someone had been in a hurry to leave and never came back. I felt a cold draft coming from inside. My breath caught in my throat, but I pushed the door open. The room was small, almost claustrophobic, with stone walls and a dirt floor. In the center of the room was a single chair, its wood cracked and splintered from age. A thick layer of dust covered everything. But what really caught my attention was the writing on the walls. Carved into the stone were words, hundreds of them, scrawled in jagged, frantic handwriting. I couldn't make out most of them, but one phrase stood out, repeated over and over again. "It watches from the dark." My heart raced. The temperature in the room dropped sharply, and I felt a prickling sensation on the back of my neck, like I was being watched. I whipped the flashlight around, scanning the room, but there was nothing, just the empty chair and the cold, suffocating air. I backed out of the room, but as I turned to leave, the door slammed shut behind me with a deafening bang. I froze, my hand still gripping the flashlight. The air grew even colder, and I could feel something in the room with me. Then I heard it, a low, guttural whisper, barely audible but unmistakable. "Leave." My blood turned to ice. The flashlight flickered, plunging the room into darkness for a split second before the beam returned, weaker than before. I lunged for the door, yanking on the handle, but it wouldn't budge. I was trapped. The whispering grew louder, filling the room, surrounding me. I spun around, my flashlight casting frantic beams of light in all directions, but the room was empty. Still, I could feel it, whatever it was, getting closer. In a panic, I slammed my shoulder against the door. It creaked but didn't open. I tried again, harder this time, and the old wood began to splinter. I could hear something moving in the darkness now, the faint scrape of something dragging across the dirt floor. My heart pounded in my chest, and I slammed against the door with all my strength. Finally, the door gave way, and I stumbled into the hallway, gasping for breath. The whispering stopped, replaced by an eerie, dead silence. I didn't look back as I sprinted up the stairs, slamming the basement door behind me. But as I leaned against the door, trying to catch my breath, I heard it again. A whisper, faint but clear, coming from behind the door. "You'll be back."